My surname is Chun. I was born in a forgotten corner deep in the southwestern mountains, where the village is shrouded year-round in damp, cold mist. Even the sunlight feels feeble and powerless. Before I turned 3, my world was layered. Beyond the living, there were things, entities lurking in the shadows, clinging to the backs of the living, or writhing silently in midnight corners. My grandfather, Old Chun the Taoist, was the only one in the village who could subdue these things. His gaze upon me always carried a fathomless worry, especially after my parents ventured into the mountains to gather herbs, and never returned. That disappearance happened on a morning when the fog was too thick to dissipate. My memories are shattered, torn apart by fear. My mother's piercing, distorted scream shattered the silence. My father shoved my cold, rigid body into a rice jar reeking of moldy grain. As the lid closed, I saw through the window not fog, but a roiling, boiling darkness like living ink. Within that darkness, countless pinprick-sized scarlet glimmers flickered wildly, like the eyes of ravenous beasts. A sickeningly sweet, putrid stench, carrying a bone-chilling cold, flooded my mouth and nose, freezing my cries in my throat. 3 days later, grandfather used ink mixed with cinnabar, rooster blood, and some unknown black powder to paint 2 icy, piercing talismans on my eyelids. In that instant, the ever-present shadows vanished, but the memories of the 3 days before my parents' disappearance, that inky darkness and those scarlet eyes, were seared into my soul like a red-hot brand. Grandfather handed me a cold, bronze lock, engraved with twisted runes. "Little N, keep this close to your body. Before you turn 17, you must not see blood, especially your own, and you must never, ever step into Ghost Whale Forest. Survive until your 17th birthday, and perhaps these cursed eyes of yours will finally find peace." His voice was dry and hoarse, each word seeming to drain his strength. His eyes held an unfathomable exhaustion and a near-desperate resolve. The bronze lock became my talisman and my cage. I lived like a fragile porcelain doll, avoiding all blades, dodging any chance of a scrape or bruise. When pigs or sheep were slaughtered in the village, I stayed far away. During children's games, I hid in corners. Ghost Whale Forest, the place that swallowed my parents, became the stuff of nightmares. From a distance, a heavier, darker gray seemed to perpetually hover over the forest, thicker than anywhere else. Grandfather's incense shop remained open. He drew talismans, exorcised spirits, and performed rites for the dead. But each time he returned from a ritual, his face grew a shade paler, his eyes more sunken, as if something invisible was draining his vitality. I knew he was suppressing something, and waiting for something. Finally, the eve of my 17th birthday arrived. The sky was ominous, with leaden clouds so heavy they seemed ready to crush the roof. The air was stagnant like glue, without a trace of wind. Even the insects fell silent, leaving a suffocating stillness that set my heart racing. Grandfather opened a dusty paulownia wood box. The moment the lid lifted, a pungent smell of old incense ash, mixed with the faint metallic tang of dried blood, filled the air. He took out an apricot yellow Taoist robe, its golden threaded runes glimmering coldly under the dim oil lamp, like countless tiny eyes. A heavy ancient peachwood sword, its blade traced with dark red veins like dried blood. A string of glossy jujube wood prayer beads, clutched tightly in his hand, his knuckles white. "Little N." Grandfather's voice was low, like it came from the depths of the earth, rasping like metal grinding together. "Tonight, no matter if the sky falls, do not leave this house. Whatever you hear, don't believe it. Whatever you see, don't respond. Until dawn. As long as you're safe, there's hope." His withered fingers pressed heavily on my eyelids, where the faded red talismans blended almost invisibly into my skin. His gaze, sharp as a blade, seemed to carve the bronze lock into my bones. Darkness finally swallowed the world. This was no ordinary night. It was a thick, inky blackness, spilling over everything, cutting off all light and sound, an absolute silence, where even my own heartbeat thundered like drums in my ears. I curled up in the cold bamboo chair in the main room, guarding the single dim oil lamp on the table. Its faint yellow flame barely illuminated a small circle, while the surrounding darkness writhed like a living thing, waiting to pounce. The bronze lock pressed against my chest, its piercing cold my only anchor. After an unknown time, a faint creaking sound, like a rusted door hinge, drifted from the distance. It was intermittent, fading in and out, yet it burrowed into my ears, scraping at my nerves. Then came footsteps, wet, sticky like bare feet treading on rotting moss, approaching step by step until they stopped outside the door. A heavy, suffocating dampness followed, carrying the voice of my mother, but it was hollow and motionless, like a poorly made puppet mimicking human speech. "Open the door, Mama's back. Mama's so cold in her." A man's voice followed, my father's, but equally hollow, dragging with an inhuman slowness. "Daddy's back too. Open the door, let Daddy see you." Fear coiled around my heart like an icy serpent. I bit my lip until the taste of rust filled my mouth. The bronze lock grew painfully cold, and the talismans on my eyelids burned fiercely, the pain shooting into my skull. Grandfather's warning exploded in my mind. Creak, creak. The sound of the door hinge grew louder, as if countless hands were slowly, forcefully shaking the door. A cold, wet wind slipped through the cracks, bringing the stench of riverbed silt and rotting waterweeds. The lamp's flame flickered wildly, shrinking to a pitiful blue spark, on the verge of extinguishing. The room's temperature plummeted, a thin layer of frost forming on the bamboo chair, floor, and walls. My breath turned to white mist before my eyes. "Anur, don't you recognize your parents?" My mother's voice suddenly sharpened, grating like nails on a chalkboard. "We died so miserably. So cold, so dark." The final stretched endlessly, its tone twisting into something inhuman, mixed with a beastly teeth-grinding snarl. "Open the door." My father's voice turned violent and commanding, no longer a plea but an order. A loud bang shook the door, as if something massive had slammed into it. The door bolt groaned under the strain, with splinters falling. "Begone, vile spirits! How dare you harm my kin?" Grandfather's roar thundered through the air, followed by the sharp whistle of his peachwood sword slicing through the darkness, the rapid clacking of his jujube beads, and a spine-chilling screech like countless nails scraping metal. Amid it all was a low, guttural growl, like a beast trapped in its chest. The pounding on the door grew frenzied, each bang shaking the entire house. The door buckled inward, cracks splintering across its surface. A viscous, foul-smelling black liquid, like tar, seeped through the seams, dripping onto the floor with a corrosive hiss. The venomous, overlapping screams of my parents' voices grew louder, more chaotic. "Old fool, you can't stop us. That boy's blood is mine. I want his eyes. Those eyes will stay in this eternal darkness." The cacophony of battle assaulted my ears. In the darkness, an invisible hand seemed to choke my throat. I could hear grandfather's labored breathing, each gasp harder than the last, and a stifled groan of pain. He was wounded. Suddenly, all sound outside ceased. The silence was heavier than before, cartillying a predatory, suffocating pressure, like a beast sizing up its prey. "Little Len." Grandfather's voice was faint, barely a thread, as if it might snap at any moment. "Guard the lamp, don't believe." His words were cut off. My mother's voice returned, this time dripping with eerie tenderness and urgent temptation. Open the door quick, your grandfather's dying. Save him, open the door. You'll see us, we're all waiting for you. Her voice carried a faint, sickening sucking sound. Son, Daddy misses you so much. Look at Daddy. My father's voice followed, tinged with a grotesque sob, but beneath it, an unmistakable greed. Open the door, let Daddy hold you. The thought of reunion, laced with poisonous sweetness, numbed my reason. Grandfather's dying weakness, 14 years of longing, coiled around my heart like twin venomous snakes. The bronze locks cold and the talisman's burn still warned me, but against the blood-soaked calls of my parents, they felt so feeble. As if possessed I stood, moving like a puppet on invisible strings, step by step toward the cracked, oozing door. My trembling fingers touched the cold, slimy wood. No, little and don't. Grandfather's scream was raw, broken, filled with unprecedented terror and despair. There. But it was too late. With my mother's cackle, a mix of mad joy and venom, I yanked open the heavy door. Creaked. The rotting hinges groaned sickeningly. The door cracked open, and an overwhelming glacial cold poured in. Not winter's chill, but a soul-freezing cold from the depths of a grave. My blood seemed to freeze solid. A nauseating stench hit me, the reek of centuries-old rotting corpses, festering entrails, and fermenting sludge blackened my vision, churning my stomach. The inky darkness surged in, swallowing the lamp's feeble light. But in that absolute blackness, I saw them outside the door. Not my parents as I remembered them. The shadow, vaguely resembling my mother, had a grotesquely twisted head. Its neck bent like a broken reed. Its swollen, pale face was featureless, with no eyes, only two oozing black blood-filled sockets. Its mouth gaped impossibly wide, revealing rows of sharp, shark-like black teeth, emitting a silent scream. Countless thin, withered hands with sharp, blackened nails sprouted from the writhing shadow, clawing at the air. My father's form was even worse, a bloated, wriggling mass of black sludge. His abdomen split open into a gaping maw, not filled with organs, but with churning, thicker darkness, and countless twisted, silently screaming faces floating within. From the edges of the gash, slimy white tendrils lined with suckers writhed greedily. Across his rotting form, hundreds of blood-red eyes snapped open, each staring at me with endless malice and hunger, their demonic glow threatening to suck out my soul. Grandfather lay a few steps from the door, his Taoist robe torn to shreds, soaked in sticky, foul black liquid and bright blood. One arm twisted at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. His peachwood sword lay shattered in pieces. A faint, cracked golden glow enveloped him, but it was being torn apart by the countless ghostly hands and tendrils, sprouting from my parents' shadows. With each tear, the glow dimmed, and grandfather's body convulsed, more blood and organ fragments spilling from his mouth. He couldn't speak, only staring at me with bulging eyes filled with pain and despair. Asterisk he asterisk, my son. You finally see your mama. The black blood oozing sockets turned toward me, the gaping mouth letting out a soul-shuddering cackle. Those eyes, the countless faces in my father's abdominal gash, chanted in a garbled, greedy chorus. The scarlet eyes spun wildly, and several slimy, white tendrils shot across the threshold, lunging for me with foul mucus dripping, corroding the floor with sizzling smoke. Utter terror and crushing regret drowned me like a tsunami. I understood. My parents had long become part of this evil. They used their lingering obsessions to lure me. The blood from my bitten lip had weakened the seal. This thing wanted my eyes that could pierce the veil between worlds, both a threat and a prize to them. Just as the cold, slimy tendrils were about to wrap around my neck, grandfather, barely clinging to life on the ground, let out a beastly roar, raw with boundless rage and final resolve. He jerked his head up, and with all his remaining strength, bit off his own tongue. A scalding spray of lifeblood, infused with his essence and lifelong cultivation, mixed with shards of his tongue and organs, erupted like molten lava, splashing onto the Polonia box he'd shielded with his body. Inside the box were two palm-sized paper effigies, a boy and a girl crafted from eerie white rice paper. As the blood soaked them, they sizzled with a burning sound, turning a vivid, piercing red. Heaven and earth boundless. Borrow the law of Chan and Kuan. With soulless blood and flesh as sacrifice, paper soldiers heed my command. Slay evil, protect the master. Open your eyes. Grandfather's roar was like a dying dragon's cry, each word sprayed with blood. As the final eyes left his lips, his body stiffened, the last spark in his eyes extinguished, and he collapsed boneless to the ground. His lifeblood writhed and burned on the paper figures. Pop pop. Two faint yet piercing sounds, like eyeballs bursting, rang directly in the depths of my soul. The blood-soaked paper figures, now a vivid red, suddenly split open at their blank faces. From the slits emerged, not painted eyes, but two pairs of living black and white eyes, deep as ancient wells, burning with pure golden flames, capable of incinerating all evil. An indescribable blazing aura, carrying the wrath of heaven, erupted from the two tiny red paper figures, like an invisible nuclear blast. Boom! A radiant golden flame exploded outward, like twin suns rising from the depths of hell. Where the light touched, the inky darkness screamed in agony, melting and evaporating like snow in boiling oil. The foul black mist, sticky liquid, ghostly hands and tendrils, all that met the golden light, turned to acrid black smoke in a thousandth of a second, annihilated. The twisted shadow of my mother bore the brunt. It let out an ear-splitting, inhuman wail. The oozing sockets ignited under the golden light, billowing thick smoke. The countless ghostly hands withered and carbonized, snapping inch by inch. Her gaping mouth twisted in agony, and with a final despairing cackle, she crumbled like a sand sculpture in a storm, dissipating entirely. My father's bloated, eye-covered sludge form was like a mass thrown into a furnace. Thousands of scarlet eyes burst one by one, spraying foul black blood. The faces in his abdominal gash wailed in relief, as they too were purified by the golden light. The white tendrils thrashed and curled into ash. The entire mass shrank and collapsed, emitting the sickening sizzle of burning fat, and countless overlapping curses, until it was wholly consumed by the purifying light. Don't forget to follow before you go. Outside, the living darkness, like a beast meeting its predator, wailed silently and surged back toward the depths of Ghost Whale Forest like a retreating tide. The suffocating stench and cold vanished with it. A faint pale gray broke through the eastern sky. The raging golden flames slowly faded. The two tiny paper figures drifted to the ground, their blood-red bodies still bearing those living eyes, their golden flames swirling coldly in their pupils, gazing with divine indifference at the now purified, deathly silent space. I collapsed, limbs ice-cold, too weak to even crawl. My gaze crossed the threshold to grandfather, lying still on the frozen mud. His body was shriveled, as if all moisture had been drained, his skin a lifeless gray, etched with eerie black patterns. His lifeblood and soul had become the kindling for the paper figure's divine fire. I opened my mouth, but no sound came, only silent icy tears. The bronze lock at my chest was no longer cold or warm, only heavy, as if soaked in blood and souls. I looked toward Ghost Whale Forest. The gray shroud above it seemed lighter, but it lingered still. The two pairs of eyes, ignited by grandfather's blood and soul, burned into my own soul, carrying a meaning deeper than fear. Grandfather had sacrificed his body and soul to protect my eyes, pushing me deeper into an abyss, where I would face these horrors head-on. From this moment, my eyes would see not just spirits, but the cold, cruel guardianship, bought with life and soul. And in the depths of Ghost Whale Forest, within the receding darkness, countless scarlet glimmers flickered silently once more.